First of all, have we all looked at this room? Isn't this amazing? I've never been here before. It's just incredible. I'm very lucky to have a sound check this morning, and just amazing space. So I'm not going to talk too much today. You've got an amazingly overwhelming day of just incredible speakers coming up. And so I'm going to say my few simple things, play some cello, and bugger off to France to play a concert tonight. So the great thing with these future events is it gives you this amazing free reign to say pretty much anything you like. Like, it's just kind of huge, do what you like, do what you do, people will listen, and you leave. You can totally aim for, just shoot for the sky. You go crazy, and no one's going to judge you. So today, I've decided I'm simply going to talk to you about why why arts education shouldn't need defending in our society, and why the arts matter. It shouldn't be pie-in-the-sky thinking. That shouldn't feel like a radical thing to say. But we're always provoked and pushed to talk about why the arts need to speed up and why they need to be more relevant, why they need to change. So can I have a quick show of hands? Does anyone here work in the arts? That's with a capital T and a capital A. OK, cool. And who works in sort of technology? That's both with a capital T and a lowercase t. Cool. OK. And the rest, I guess, are sort of itinerant and other sort of fields. Yeah, so I work with a lot of technologists as well as a lot of musicians, and I'm very lucky to do that, and I absolutely love it. But the idea is that that's something new. The idea that working with technology and music is somehow new is a very short-sighted view. The cello came from hundreds and hundreds of years of collaboration with what would otherwise be called technologists, luthiers who build instruments and make a tool for you to control and harness sound. I'm more often than not asked to talk about work with tech, so I'm looking forward to this. So, it's probably also going to be the least glamorous talk of the day. I don't have any kind of cool, funky stuff with me, so here we go. I always get the feeling that we defend our position in society and the ecosystem in the wrong way. We try to battle it in the sort of apparent level playing field of income, return on investment, and all the other usual justifiers where all you need is a bigger number at the end of the day to win the argument. So I'm going to talk about things that get left out because they don't fit on a balance sheet, or they seem a bit soft and fluffy, and why this soft and fluffiness is essential to our future. Just a bit of housekeeping. If I say music, it's generally going to mean the arts. It's just a shorthand that I find it difficult to overcome. And also, does everyone know STEAM and STEM? Does that acronym mean something? So STEM being academic subjects in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and STEAM, other than being hot air, because I did pay attention in biology at school, would be shoehorning arts, design, and music, and the arts into those subject categories. So STEM subjects can apparently do no wrong right now because we're told we need them to fuel our future economy. And it's tough to argue against that. In the information age, it's a very easy question. It's a very easy equation. Teaching effort in, economic and social return out. And it's all one big verification loop because STEM subjects at scale all kind of lend themselves to this season's must-have accessories and buzzwords. Innovation, agile, rapid, lean, disruptive, viral, democratized, all the rest of them. Any prefix of social or suffix of 2.0. There are also plenty of youthful CEOs with trendy offices. What isn't talked about, however, is what people this is creating. What people we're creating for this future of an innovative, disruptive, agile workforce for a global social economy. My concern, because I'm secretly a Luddite and I'm wearing a tweed jacket, is that we're not creating people. We're creating kind of little line items with silly haircuts on a balance sheet we don't really understand. There's an incentive to be fast. We see this all the time, the rapid prototyping, fail fast, fail hard, fail often. It's kind of speed up. Lean, rapid, agile are no longer the preserve of Olympic sprinters. Every meeting, every transaction, maximizing return. There's an incentive not to worry too much about what happens to things because it's just so cheap to do it all over again. There's an incentive to create minimum viable products. Now, I understand what that means, but when did we become so proud of doing the least amount and realizing it's wrong? What's wrong with taking time? I'm reminded of Robert Schumann, the composer, and I read an article about him, someone complaining that he hadn't written more, and why it was such a sad thing that he hadn't written more music. Isn't it just a great thing that we've got what he made? Can't we just enjoy that? And we should have pride in refining skills, in historical art forms, and in innovating in that space as well. You know, there's pride in artisanal coffee and craft beer. Why can't we have pride in the arts? The arts are about listening. They're about sharing. They're about contributing to something greater than just yourself. They're about being patient and allowing progress to happen with and around other people. It's about being considerate and learning from others, both good and bad. It's about integrating opinions which may be contrarian to your own and committing to something with no likely gain for your bank balance. It's important to be able to come to terms with these sorts of things. It's also an intensely personal and sort of private therapy, an incredible way to share and communicate with a group. This is something we should hold on to in our increasingly complex society. If we only teach subjects which will fuel the future economy, learning to earn, it just feels so cynical and so cold. Learning shouldn't be pessimistic. It should be the most wonderfully optimistic thing. No 10-year-old should, I don't think, should feel the need for a backup or a safety net or an economic burden constraining their imagination, because that's the one resource we can for sure say we're going to need in the future. We're always going to need more people with imaginations looking at our problems. We need people taking a position in the world, not a position in the market. And I worry sometimes that slow and steady is just too unfashionable and too unsexy to sell at the moment. And soon all arts educators will be looking to gamify their practice in order to stay relevant or simply justify funding. An iPad app cannot teach the violin. It's actually, in my humble opinion, as simple as that. To assume it can misses the point that music isn't simply a series of technical exercises repeated over and over and over again with perfect form. It's this gamifying situation that concerns me, really. I've been very fortunate, and am very fortunate, to work with some of the top technologists and tech companies in the world, and incredibly fortunate to have had incredible, inspiring music teachers my entire life. But I'm yet to see anything in the tech world, in this kind of learning and sharing space, that does the one thing that a good music teacher can do in a room with children, and that's empathize and listen and care. An app can't tell if you've had a bad day. It can't tell if you don't understand something, or something's simply a work in progress. And we spend years learning what we do. I'm 26, right? I've done this for 22 years. There's probably nothing else in my life I will do except probably be cheeky or rude to my parents for that length of time. So, it's important to appreciate that this stuff takes time and that the learning process is about making mistakes. An app can't tell that. Sometimes things aren't ready to be judged. They're just not quite ready. They need inspiration and support. And things aren't always right or wrong. Nothing's that simple. So let's not apologize when we say that a sensitive education needs to be personal and that it probably doesn't scale and won't come out of a hack day. Not everything needs a buzzword. Some things can just be what they are. That's fine. And I'll be damned if a generation of kids grow up believing that an app can solve all their problems. Because actually, if the only justification is they're affordable, again, misses the point. People need people in society. We need to be vulnerable as well as strong. And we need to know how to ask questions, not to be told what we've done. See, growing up learning music wasn't just about learning scales and studies, concertos, sonatas. It's a lot of that, but it really is so much more. Success in arts education is not flooding the market with little oboists, thespians, and sculptors. It's developing life skills which we need in society. I've personally never been to a meeting where I wanted people to talk more mathematically at me, but I have been in plenty of meetings where I've wanted people to listen, or to take my position, or be patient. These are human things. These are important human facets. I voiced these opinions softly in an article with The Observer a couple of months ago, I think about this event actually, and generally people agreed. But I had one vitriolic email from a guy in Canada, and we started a conversation. It was really interesting. But he said to me that it's all right for you, you were given these chances. And he's right, I was very lucky. But I also worked bloody hard, and have done seriously since I was about 10. And it was at this point that he said, the game's up, like no child can motivate themselves, you must have had pushy parents, easy, job done. And it was at that point I felt really sorry for him, because the guy had children, it turned out, and had presumably at some point been a child himself. And he didn't know what it was to care about something. He didn't seem to get what it was to just really get the bit between your teeth. The analogy I like for this, if you imagine a little child with a tub of soap and a loop to blow bubbles. Right, so a friend of mine's got a little toddler, and the look on her face when, this sort of the anticipation, the excitement, the appreciation of the task at hand, all this stuff, it's amazing to watch. And at that point, nothing is more important. Nothing is more important in the world than blowing bubbles. You have to learn how hard to go, do them into the wind, how to avoid trees. If you scale that up right there, you've got your own little rocket scientist. But the most important thing is that nothing matters more at that time than bubbles. That's the important thing. Imagine if we could harness that excitement, the importance of bubbles, into arts education. I was immensely privileged to have had inspiring teachers around me from a very young age, but I'll challenge anyone that suggests privilege begets success. There's a point which you need to turn curiosity into skill and turn that passion into something that works. And it's a lifetime of dedication which can really only be endured with the same underlying passion that we had when we were 3 blowing bubbles in the garden. I suppose a bigger problem we have actually in the arts, looking around at sort of tech and culture events, the inevitable question is, well, is classical music relevant? Is this really the right fight to be picking? And I get asked this quite a lot on balance, because I work with technology people as well as arts people. And it seems to me to miss kind of a central point about relevance. Relevance and popularity are not the same thing. That classical music is not mass market popular in 2013 does not mean that its relevance is not felt in 2013. That we still have music evolving, growing, people creating, is a sign that classical music is working. It did its job really, really well. If music had stopped in 1750, or if playwriting had ended with Shakespeare, that would be a sign of it failing. They didn't write to be the end. They didn't write to be the final word. They wrote so that other people would keep writing. But it's very easy to shine the light on the tech world, and the technology thinks it's so new and so exciting. We need to be very happy with our position in this kind of ecosystem. We have to understand that we're not going to be front and center popular kids at the dance anymore. And it's a dignified way to be, to have this kind of weight of a history behind the career. I suppose the central thing to this point, before I do a little bit of scraping for you, is whether we think it's important and relevant to excite young people to the possibility that it's okay, and maybe even a good thing, to have opinions about abstract aesthetic concepts. It's hard to quantify how it adds value to the economy, but let's not be so naive as to assume that everything can be judged with one simple measurement. I'm certainly not standing here saying that a music and arts education is more important than a maths education, or that a world made up of actors is somehow preferable to a world full of doctors. But I am saying that a world full of people who can listen, and a world full of people who value others' input, whether or not it's popular or agrees with their own, is one to which I believe we should aspire. In a world where people don't lose interest because the challenge gets too great, where there's no focus without a leaderboard, or only worth trying because there's a prize. It all starts and ends with that same moment of blowing bubbles, not competing for a high score. So with that, I'm going to play some cello. Thank you.